Well, educating the mind without educating heart is no education at all. And I feel proud to say that our School of Liberal Arts makes a perfect integration between mind and heart, or between knowledge and wisdom. With this pride in liberal arts, let me at the outset wish you all a very good morning and extend a very warm welcome to each of you in this panel discussion on coping with challenges of online education organized by MIT University, Haryana. In this panel discussion, we have four eminent educationists who will enlighten us by sharing their valuable viewpoints on the topic under discussion. First of all, we feel truly honored to have with us Professor Srihari Honwat, an academic with vast administrative and governance experience. Apart from being the alumni of BITS Pilani and the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Dr. Honwat has been the Fellow of Energy Institute, UK, London. He has held various positions in several premier institutions, such as Principal of DJ Sanghvi College of Engineering, Mumbai, Vice Chancellors of two universities, namely University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun, and GD Goenka University, Gurugram. And currently he is serving as Pro-Vice Chancellor of Sir Padmpat Singhania University, Udaipur. Next we have Professor Prabhat Ranjan, Honorable Vice Chancellor of DY Patil University, Pune. Professor Ranjan, a nuclear fusion scientist, received his PhD from University of California, Berkeley, on nuclear fusion in 1986. He has served several premier institutions in India as well as abroad in a highly dignified positions. He is the recipient of several prestigious awards and co-founder of a startup called Sun Technovation, plus mentor of a popular YouTube science portal that is Science and Wines, something like that. Then we have with us Honorable Pro-Vice Chancellor of MIT University, Haryana, Professor Padmakali Banerjee, who is a thought leader, a leadership coach, and an institutional builder. She is the author of the popular book, The Power of Positivity, Optimism, and the Seventh Sense. She is the fellow of the prestigious Somatic Inkblot Society, US, and affiliate of the American Psychological Association. Her recent prestigious awards include Greenbelt Leadership Award from USGBC and Award of Excellence from INSPA for her contribution in psychology. And we also have Professor Kamal Banshal, Honorable Dean of Engineering and Academic Development and Innovation at UPES University, Dehradun. He is an accomplished academician having vast experience in the field of education, electrical engineering, project management, renewable energy, energy management, and sustainable development. So, expressing my profound happiness and deepest sense of gratitude to our illustrious panelists, may I request all our esteemed participants to give a huge round of digital applause for the distinguished panelists, please. Yeah. Setting the background of this panel discussion, it goes without saying that Corona across the globe has paralyzed human lives, and India is no exception. This Corona has caused multiple crises surrounding human lives. And one such crisis, which we all are going to discuss today, is education crisis. This education crisis occurred not only because of adopting online education, but also because of the fact that our traditional model of education could not suffice to meet the pedagogical challenges cropped up during the Corona lockdown. Unlike on-campus education, which has three vital components, namely teacher, learner, and textbooks, in online education, we have about 9 components. And they are technology, teacher, students, curriculum, classroom, study materials, evaluation, parents, society, as well as employers. Although we embraced the challenge of evolving a model of online education that could meet or suit the changing needs of students as well as teachers in tandem with our changing world. But the outcome of online education is far from satisfactory because of several challenges associated with each of these 9 components. Despite the fact that technology has emerged as a major lifesaver for the academia, we have also seen outrage and protest from students as well as from parents against online education. And so much so, if you remember, Karnataka government banned online education in primary schools just 1 week ago. So given the increasing number of issues and less solutions, we have assembled today on this virtual platform to firstly identify some of the serious challenges found in online education and then forward solutions to cope with those challenges. So let me start this discussion with the general remarks of Professor Padmakali Banerjee, who is an icon of optimism and also the chair of this session. Ma'am, people involved in online education across the nation have experienced several challenges related to the 9 components which I just now stated. Although we started using different options of a learning management system such as Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Moodle, MOOC, Coursera, etc., we are not able to decide which platform will be effective for online teaching from holistic perspective. So despite knowing that even the most sophisticated technology is not 100% reliable, we are slowly getting into online education, especially in a country like ours, where 50% of the student population from nursery to tertiary level are deprived of online education. How do you rate, how do you see future as well as success of online education in India in terms of learning outcome? Over to Professor Banerjee, please.
Thank you, Professor Jha. A very good morning to each one of you, the eminent panelists that we have with us, including Professor Ranjan, Professor Hari, Professor Bansal, Professor Devendra, and all others, all the distinguished people who have joined. I could read out a couple of messages which was inbox from many people. I must tell you that today we begin a day with a very interesting note that it is a very culmination of 3 big things happening. One, of course, the big pandemic that we are all going through. You know, we have never seen in all these decades when we grew up, I've read about pandemics but never experienced. So it is one of the biggest. Beyond that, we are seeing today the International Yoga Day. So there is a lot of positivity around where yoga from home is kind of a caption that we have captioned for India, where we want people sitting at home. Even while you're attending, you could do some yoga mudras so that you are able to have a better, well-being around you. And the third most important thing that we are going and witnessing is the big, solar eclipse that we are seeing today. So, and I know while we are sitting here and people are possibly all onto the screen watching the ring of the sun, but I know we are waiting for maybe post 1 o'clock. I'm also going to go back and see that ring. See, I think there is a common thing in all 3 of them. You know, pandemic has created a crisis. Yoga is giving you more semblance in your mind, body, and soul to handle the kind of crisis around us. And what we see is nature around. It is the power of the nature, the natural things that we see, the sun, moon, and the earth coming together, and you see an eclipse. And definitely it is there are also articles which I read in the morning which talked about, are they going to have a impact on the coronavirus, this Surya Grahan, what is it going to really do? The solar eclipse, is it going to kill the virus? So all kinds of, thoughts are there around us. But today I'm very, very excited that, on behalf of Amity University, Haryana, which is a very research and innovation driven university, and we are one of the only universities which are a platinum LEED certified green campus. I would have loved to host all of you, all the attendees into the campus, but nevertheless, we have this interesting Zoom platform. So I start with Zoom, because I think years back when we were in the times of Skype and then Zoom came in, it was only an alternate mode of communication. The HR verticals used it mostly for interviews, and we were all okay. If somebody couldn't come down physically to you, you would use Zoom. Very rarely did we use Zoom for a classroom or a seminar or a conference in that big scale that we have seen. So definitely I want to start from the base, because in the last 2 months, we had organized a lot of programs with the K-12 school principals. So I've spoken to at least 3 dozens of school principals on their thoughts about K-12 schools. So today's, I would like to concentrate on the higher education front, because K-12 has their own issues which we need to look at from the point of adolescent people getting into the classroom, where a mother or a father has to sit along with the child, even if for them to attend a class like that. So for the paucity of time today, I would like to concentrate on the higher education. So I would try to talk about that. If you want to say you want to start off with an interactive classroom, whether it is MS Team or Google Classroom or any of the platform that you use, I think 3 things we need to remember. That it is, again, the actual drivers would be the teachers, the faculty members. So definitely day 1, I think a great training session has to be started, where not only people need to be aware of the LMS platform or how to use a particular platform, but how do you create, the second point is, how do you create student engagement in an online platform? I think that is the major challenge that you see. So will your online class would be the same, where I fix a whiteboard behind and I start writing on the board, or should I do it on this platform? So if you look at that, I was going through some of the very popular software like WizIQ, or for example, pen, tablets you have, you connect it to your computer. So even while you're carrying on a Zoom Connect session, you can write on the slides that you've created in order to explain. You can circle it, you can explain to the students. And then you also have a very interesting software. When you look at even MS Paint, there is a facility in MS Paint that people can use it while classroom teaching. So I'm talking about from the point of view of faculty members. Then if you look at, if you want to bring in audio into your classroom in a proper way, where there are no disturbances, look at Audacity, which has become very popular now, where you're using it as an audio tool to improve it. If you look at your video, you will see it is a hit film, both Express and Pro models, where you can bring in correcting video. I may have recorded my video 12 o'clock at night, I want to relay it, and I found that there is a small error that I want to change it. So this kind of a software, like I'm mentioning, like Hit Films, they will be immediately doing it. It's very user friendly. You need not be a tech wizard to handle it. So some of these things, if you find out, you will see that teachers have discovered different platforms. So you can have the last 2 that I mentioned are open software. So they are not even expensive. You need to just learn how to use it. And there would be a paid version, but there are free versions. So this, I'm talking from the point of view of how to teach and engage people in the classroom. And the third and the most important are our students. Because I have seen that teachers took time to get onto the platform, but the youth of India, they are so tech savvy. They were more used to a social interaction online than offline. Sometimes we would tell our students, come and give presentation. They would make amazing, movies and stuff to communicate. So I feel that the combination of the 3 would make it a lot more meaningful. And to do that, background has to be the curriculum design, the kind of quality of pedagogy that you decide to do, and the mode of assessment, whether you decide a more MCQ kind of a mode, whether there is more a course on, say, liberal arts could be different from what you teach in a STEM course, because a lot of ed tech companies have come across, and they are coming across and in fact selling it to the most of the higher level institutions, where you can create your own LMS and have a great interaction and assessment, and with the freedom of being secure, because security is also going to be a very important aspect, where we are dealing with the masses, with a large number of students. And finally, I would also want to stress, where there are internet issues, then I think more than interactive, it could be recorded, where you can use YouTube as a channel platform, where very little, bandwidth and other things are required, where people can take it and go ahead. So I think it's a great, thought that we all at higher level institutions are going through, that what is the best method that we pick and choose. And I personally believe that it is going to be an eclectic method. There is not going to be one way for everything. So you have to choose that between what courses that you're teaching, whether it is a STEM program or an arts program or a management course. For example, the case study approach that we have been using in management, what better than now that you can do real-time cases on COVID? Because personally, we are consuming so much of information today on this crisis. So I see the crisis also as a bed of opportunities for us. Great things that can be done during these times while we are home. There is no stoppage to the research and your ideation and your thought processes. Large number of social entrepreneurs, young boys and girls from our universities and others come out with a lot of good solutions for such situations. So with this, I think I welcome each of you all in the panel, and I'm expecting personally a great white paper that we can take from this panel today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your very, very subtle yet comprehensive deliberations on future and success of online education. And you very rightly said that we need blended or eclectic approach of online education. And just to paraphrase it, I can just add to this, that we can teach through MST, Microsoft Team. At the same time, we can, examine our students through Google Classroom, and we can use, SlideShare for the assignment purpose. So this way, we have to blend all these technologies. So with that, I will move on to our next panelist, Professor Prabhat Ranjan. Well, after the imposition of lockdown and induction of online education, a question that started perplexing us is whether online education is really going to replace offline or on-campus education. And the same question I would like to put forth for you, sir. How do you think online education will compete with our traditional format of on-campus education, or online education can be brought at par with on-campus education? Over to Professor Ranjan, please.
Thank you, Professor Jha. Before I start, two things. One is that my thought is a lot of people have lost their family members. I lost my grandfather in the early 1940s in one such endemic in the Mithila region. Professor Jha will be familiar. My father was only 12 years old, and I have seen how my family had to cope up with that. It was not a one-day event. It continued for years together, and the struggle that my family had to go through that. So I'm sure that we must feel the loss that many of us have suffered. The second point that I wanted to just correct something. There are a lot of D.Y. Patil campuses. So I'm a founder, vice chancellor of D.Y. Patil International University, and it is in Akurdi area of Pune. I mean, there are a number of campuses within Pune itself and Navi Mumbai, Kolhapur, and so on. So we need to just distinguish that. If I go back to the question that we posed, let me go back to my days in Berkeley. Two examples I'll give you. One was that when I was a teaching assistant in 1981, I joined there. There were 1,000 students in one classroom. And we used different methods of technology that was available to us to make sure that the students learn. I'm not going to go into details, but some of us serve on these regulatory bodies of the country. where we restrict the students that you must have only 60 students in the classroom and so on. I was used to, in 40 years back, also used to 1,000 students classroom, and now I understand there are 2,000 students in the classroom. The second point that I wanted to make was that time also, at least one faculty member, one professor who used to record his videos and said that if in his course there are less than 5 students, he will not give lecture. You go and listen to the video in the library and the facilities were there, and then you come back and answer the question and give the exam. So these technologies have been used for a long time. The way we have grown, internet was not there. I'll come back to this point again. Let me just go back 200, 300 years back. We remember Guru Shishya Parampara as the best education system. Right. What was the problem with that? The problem was that it was, of course, the good thing was it was very customized to individual students' need. The learners used to live together with the Guru. I have grown in such a Gurukul style education from my childhood, from the age of 10 in Netarhat school, which was a ashram style. I used to live in Nalanda ashram, one of the universities that we quote all the time. I have grown like that. I used to work with my hand. I used to clean toilets. I used to clean dishes every day, every single day, not only my, but everybody else's. That is the kind of education we have. So when you talked about mind and heart, I would like to add hand to that. That's very important. Mind, heart, and hand together has to be looked at as part of learning. And the lockdown periods have shown us that. Of course, I've lived in US, so we used to work there, and I used to work even before that. But today, lockdown has put this emphasis that everybody has to be able to do everything. So when I go back to Guru Shishya Parampara, when the Industrial Revolution was taking place in 1750s, we needed large number of skills, manpower, doing the same kind of thing. And that's where the new education system that we are still following is going on, where you actually take a student, put them in assembly line, somebody of 3 years course or 4-year course, and we throw them out after that, whether they have learned or not learned, doesn't matter, A, B, C, D, doesn't matter. We have talked about competency-based exams and so on, but in practice, we have not done much. So for example, somebody goes out, you go to a doctor and the doctor doing surgery and says that, okay, I didn't read the chapter on lung because it was not important for the exam. So today we are in that situation where actually we only do selective learning, and there's a lot of variation among the students. When even 20 years back, when I joined the education part after, mostly I was in research, we always discuss this in Gandhinagar when Dhirubhai Ambani Institute was set up. How do I scale up the education that we are providing to lakhs of people? That was a question we used to ask ourselves. And that's where the online education was always thought. So it's not a new thought that we are actually discussing today. We have been discussing for some time. And what are the problems with online versus the on-campus education? Few points I'll make out. I was also heading in Delhi TIFAC, which is Technology Think Tank of India. We prepared the document Technology Vision 2035. If you go through the documents, we had actually visualized the future, what's going to be the future in the next 20 years, how it's going to, education was one of the sectors, and to be, let me put it straight, that when we prepared the vision document for the country, it was actually a vision for the quality of life of people. And there was 12 roadmaps to achieve that vision. I put education right on the top. The first one in the list was education. And I wanted to come back to education because education is the key to everything that we do. So even in that document, few things that we are discussing today is very important. We have said that one is the role of teacher is completely changing. We are no longer the only source of knowledge to the students, which means that the students can learn from multiple sources. I've done all my education in physics, but today physicists will disown me saying that ye to physics janta hi nahi. We will be thrown out. I mean, I'm long back also people to think that either I'm a computer scientist or a vacuum person or whatever, I don't know. Because I did many things that I needed to do. So I've done a lot of learning on my own. I've done only one computer course in Kharagpur that was in Fortran. Since then I've grown with computers and people think I'm a computer expert, but none of this I have had to take a class anytime or any kind of training course. So what we talked about is that today sources of knowledge are multiple. Teachers are not the only sources of knowledge. The role of teacher is changing in the sense that what we have used the term that the role of teacher becomes like more like a mentor, a guide. And one of the books I read talked about this, saying that we used to be sage on the stage Now we are no longer that, we are guide on the side. So we have to be friends with the students. It's no longer that you stand on the pedestal and you are giving a sermon, everybody is listening to that. That's no longer the case. In fact, many times we have seen students who come, they are already learned so much. They only come for degree because they think that they will not learn anything new, they'll know much more. So the flipped classroom concept was already visualized, but actually students learn in the home and come back to classroom to discuss and troubleshoot. So the whole philosophy, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, was already changing, and we had seen this earlier. Professor Banerjee talked about Zoom in detail, and actually I was in TIFAC, and we used to run a program for women with mid-career break. And we used to give them training in patents. In fact, we received the President's Award for Women Empowerment in 2016. These were women with mid-career break, and we used to bring them 120 of them and to train them in intellectual property. 10% of all patent professors in the country are created by that program. Now, why I'm mentioning this, because they used to come, it was a one-year training program. We used to train them in Delhi for 1 month, and they used to go all over India. And I used to use Zoom to connect with them, actually organize online lecture even in that time. The second thing we did was, the issue that we face today, like we are all sitting here, our body language is not visible to students because we cannot move around. We're not standing in the front of something. Okay? So when we are in the classroom, physically, students can see us, we are moving around, we are talking, everything is important to capture the attention. When we are on online system where we're looking at computer or tablet and so on, there are many distractions that is happening, which has also led to the problem of ADHD and ADD, attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit hyper disorder. It is also actually increased in US. We have seen the adult ADHD is rampant. We cannot focus our attention. So how to capture that attention through online, that is very, very important issue as compared to offline, where you and the students, nobody has anything else to do, they have to listen to you. Still, they don't pay attention. I mean, even then they don't pay attention. Even I would accept that if I don't sit on the front bench and if I sit on second bench, my attention goes somewhere else. So I have lost the capability of being a good student unless I sit in the front bench. So one of the ways that we try to do this in Delhi also is to become like a TV anchor. Now I would give an example of weather reporter. Weather report, you will see, or election time when you see, a lot of visuals are there. We have a map at the back of the anchor and the TV reporter, and he or she is actually showing that, okay, in Pune this is happening, in Bombay this is happening, Delhi this is happening, and there's an interactive thing that is going on. So actually today, if I have to continue, it is probably going to be a mixed kind of situation, hybrid situation, where there may be some students on the classroom and some students who may be, from watching from home, or they may watch it offline also. This is frequently happening. So even in Delhi, when I was doing the program, I actually used to record this thing. I had purchased many things. I did a lot of experiments to make sure that we can record the lectures in a good way so that students who learn afterwards, then they can also, because there was many women who had issues with family issues, other things. In fact, I remember the first one batch that came, 8th batch, out of 100 odd women, 10 were pregnant, and they had to go out during the program at certain stage. We did not want to lose them. So I had made sure that we can record all these things. So we used to put green screen, we used to put many things, we did that. Now, when I joined D.Y. Patil International University in 2018, I had all that background. And I told my management that we need to focus on digital infrastructure rather than physical and human infrastructure. And that was the only way we could do. So we already had planned this out. COVID-19 did many things, but planning was already there. And actually today I'm converting all my classroom to a studio. Okay. Now it's very costly if you do it. So I'm finding cheap ways to do it so that it doesn't cost too much. And I have spent more money on audio systems rather than the projector. Because that was very important. Audacity was mentioned. I've been using it for a long time. Audio quality is extremely important to capture the attention of the students. So we have made sure that we have spent much more money than audio system. So I'm converting all my classroom to actually studio. It was part of my plan. The second part that I wanted to mention was that when we were doing Guru Shishya Parampara, the Guru could only handle small number of students. There was a capacity limitation. The Industrial Revolution changed that. We went through with that system. We went to assembly line system that we are following. You could teach large number of students, but everybody learned only part of it. Today, we need to combine these two. How can we bring Guru Shishya Parampara back into this? That is where the role of artificial intelligence comes in. That can I do adaptive learning for all the students together in a way that everybody is monitored, and that the systems have already come in. I've given talk on this many times. Today's short of time, I cannot go into that. But if we use AI to actually monitor the students' progress, there may be lakhs of them. We can still feel as if everybody is interacting with the teachers. And even the model that some of you mentioned has such facilities, where actually when you're watching the video, it will ask you questions and let you proceed or not proceed depending upon what you're answering. And it will give you all the analytics to the teacher so they can understand who is having how much difficulty, which portion they are having difficulty. So analytics based on AI is very important. I think I'm running out of time probably, so other Professor Jha will not be happy.
Yeah,
so
no problem. Thank you, sir.
I will just make one last point
yes.
and then I'll stop. The point is that in addition to when we're talking about technology here in online, we're only talking about delivery mechanism. One more thing that is very important from India's point of view is the language part, where the students have to actually learn in the language of their choice. And that's where the technology also is coming in. And I had visualized a multilingual holographic guru, which could be present anywhere, everywhere that we desire. So you are not physically there, you are present in the form of holographic thing. This is part of a DST document of interdisciplinary cyber physical system. So I'm hoping that technology combined with 5G technology, other things coming in, will make sure that we have a holographic guru in every room that we desire. Thank you very much.
Very insightful, very insightful. Thank you, sir, for your comprehensive reflection on varied aspects of online and on-campus education. Sir, you very aptly said that we are no more sage on the stage, rather guide on the side. At the same time, we will also contemplate over assimilating your suggestions of mind, heart, and hand. And you rightly said that our online education needs to be supported by artificial intelligence as well as augmented reality. Definitely, we'll think over that in a positive manner. And sir, I shall revert to you with some more questions on the pertinent issues. But now I would like to revert, we have our next panelist, Professor Srihari Honwad, rather, yes. So who is a blend of, knowledge and intellect, or I can say science and spirituality, based on my observation and experience, whatever little time I found, of spending with him. So I'll raise few questions, first of all, for Professor Srihari Honwad. Sir, we would like to know your views on a very generic concern. That is, what is the purpose of education, according to you? And is that purpose getting served through our online education? If yes, please tell us how. And if not, then please tell us why. Over to Professor Honwad, please.
You have given me a very tall order, sir. And especially to follow up after Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Ranjan. Thankfully, you have veered me away from the subject a little bit. Purpose of education, I think, in a very short definition, is to prepare me to be a part of the society, to lead the society, to help the society, to improve the societal being, and to be useful to the society essentially. And to make my point, I would like to direct people to a very wonderful film which was made way back. I think it's a black and white film by the name Gods Must Be Crazy. At the beginning of the film, first 5 minutes, there is a commentary where all the the titles are coming up, and they're showing two juxtaposing scene in the Kalahari Desert, where there are these Aboriginal people who are trying to make a life, and a few hundred kilometers away from Kalahari Desert in the city of Johannesburg, where again there are human beings trying to make for a life, and the commentary which I'm sure nobody would have listened to is worthwhile listening to, where in a Kalahari desert it takes about a couple of years for the human being to be ready for the society and make his way around. It takes as much as 15 to 20 years in Johannesburg to prepare the human being so that he can be part of the society and he can survive in the society. That's first priority. Then he can navigate himself. Second priority, he can be a leader and he can take the society to newer heights. He can improve the living standards of the society, etc., etc. Solve the problems of the society, etc. That, in a nutshell, which involves you need the hand which Dr. Ranjan was referring to. You need the heart because your heart has to be one with the society. You need the brains because you need to know everything the society has learned over the years till date, and be prepared to push the society beyond that. Uh, uh, I think that in a nutshell should be what education is all for. And secondly, uh, how are we doing it? In some sense, we are doing it. What all is required for it? You need to understand the value system of the society we live in. In fact, we need to understand, we need to prepare students a value system that is more suitable for the society we live in. And the, the six values Dr. Jha and we have discussed earlier also, which are relevant, which are universally accepted, which are beyond religion, so, region, or the kind of society we live in. I think those values are very, very important. Are we giving it? Yes and no. We are surely giving some of these values both at home and in the society. But a lot of these values, the society itself is dropping because somewhere along the line we have missed out, parting this value system. Especially, I'm more concerned other than the respect and the integrity and other value system. The most important value is uh, being a citizen. Being a citizen is both care and share. You care for others and you do not only your share of the work in the society, but more if you're more capable of. I think that is what we have seen in this pandemic also. I've seen people going out of their way and helping people with food and other supplies. We have seen our medical staff relentlessly working very hard day in, day out, in spite of the perceived dangers associated with the pandemic. I've also seen people who have been selfish and who have been responsible for some of the things in the society which none of us ever wanted to see. I mean, we would wish those episodes away from our society forever. I think that's where we are, and we need to work on our students who are yet to enter this society. We would need to work on our students, make sure that they are ready not just with the skills and the knowledge, which will surely help them in the society, but also the value system, because the entire society has to be guided towards a direction which will make the society, I think I should have much earlier used the word sustainable. I think sustainability goals of the UN Assembly are very, very important to all of us. And towards that, we need to go. And are we doing it? I'm 100% sure there is a spectrum, broad spectrum of some people are doing it very well, some people are doing it too much of it, and the other extreme where people don't care about it as long as you got your skills, you got your job, and you go ahead and start doing it. That's because, and that's the same what Dr. Ranjan was talking about in terms of the teacher from being a sage on stage to a guide on the side. I think we are talking about active learning, which has to happen from students. Dr. Ranjan rightly goes back to Gurukuls. I would say we don't even have to go so far back. The teachers of this panel, which is sitting, were very smart. They had the same kind of issues. They had a classroom full of 60. Dr. Ranjan talked about 1,000 classrooms, but they succeeded in bringing out the outcomes relevant. Otherwise, the 8 people who I see on the screen would not be here if those values, those skills, this thing were not imparted. But I think somewhere we have lost the game. We have forgotten that learning is important, and it's active learning that is important, which means it has to be student-led. And we didn't realize that even when we learned, it was student-led. It's just that our teachers did got us excited about the learning process and accelerated our wanting to learn. And somewhere along the line, I'm sure across the spectrum, when you see there are wonderful teachers who without technology were ensuring active learning in their classes. Even when the technology transformation has happened, especially in the last few months, it is these teachers who are so focused on learning, that learning should happen, are ensuring that learning happens. They have overcome the the technological disadvantages they had. We see those photographs of a teacher tying her mobile to a chair which is hung from the fan and still trying to teach on the blackboard. I think that's innovation. That's that's where the heart of a teacher should be, and to ensure that active learning. And I'm sure there are also the other spectrum where students log in, put everything on mute, and go ahead with their daily business so that they have got their attendance on online learning. And well, eventually, these are smart students, and somehow they will cope up with life and survive. I think that's where I stand.
Very well said,
seem
sir.
to have,
Very well.
I seem to have exhausted the time given to me, but I think that's what I would like to say as a starting material.
Very well said, sir. I think your perspective also takes us, to our Vedic perspective of education, which says sa vidyaya vimuktaye, means विद्या वही है जो हमें मुक्ति प्रदान कर सके. लेकिन मुक्ति किस बात से? तो आगे कहा गया है कि जो विद्या हमें रोग, शोक, द्वेष, पाप, दीनता, दासता, गरीबी, बेकारी, अभाव, अज्ञान, दुर्गुण, कुसंस्कार आदि के शारीरिक, मानसिक एवं सामाजिक बंधनों से मुक्ति दिलाए, वही विद्या है. उसे ही सीखना और सिखाना उचित है. So having said that, now I will move on to having said that, I'll move on to Dr. Kamal Banshal. Dr. Banshal, as we know, COVID-19 came to us without giving any prior warning. And from the very first day of lockdown, we started confronting a number of challenges, like what should be the modalities of online teaching, modalities of examination, lack of rapport between teachers and exposure of students to X-rated contents, increasing rate of cyber crimes, etc. Of these issues, I feel the modality of examination is a growing concern for all of us, not only in terms of how to conduct exams, but also to ensure fairness of the exams. Although we are empowered and loaded with all sorts of technical support, but we feel somehow and somewhere compromising with the integrity and rigor of examination. When things became unmanageable, the system had to promote students to the next level without conducting exams. In this scenario, how do you justify the conduct of exams in terms of its integrity and fairness? Over to Dr. Bansal, please.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Jha. It's actually always a challenge to speak fourth or fifth in the queue when giants like Professor Ranjan, Professor Banerjee, and Dr. Srihari have spoken. So, Professor Jha, you rightly said that this COVID-19 has suddenly put us in a situation which was not acceptable, or which was not, nobody was prepared or aware of this kind of situation. So whatever has happened during last couple of months, my sense is that was a knee-jerk reaction to the situation. We just tried to shift everything from face-to-face philosophy to the online philosophy. I mean, in online, we almost replicate what we used to do in a face-to-face sessions. In my sense, that is not actually the purpose of online education. I mean, Professor Ranjan, Professor Srihari both have mentioned we need to use the online education to our advantage, to the advantage of the students. We simply can't replicate the way we have been teaching or even evaluating also. You have asked the question on evaluation. I'll specifically be talking about evaluation. Right. But if we start simply replicating what we used to do on a face-to-face manner into the online space, I think we'll be mistaking with the whole process and whole essence of education. While on one hand, online has given us lots of flexibility, be it a synchronous mode or asynchronous mode, they both brings in their own advantage to both students and teachers. Also, I'm sure every day you see any LinkedIn post or any messages, they are all flooded with lots of webinars taking place on different topics. So a lot of material is now available to students. They are able to listen to various experts of the domain of they are liking. But when it comes to evaluation, I think it's, I'll say it's an evolving process. We have still not yet matured in overall online teaching learning process. It's in my sense, as of now, we are still in the evolving stage. As I see it today, and I mean, you rightly mentioned that some of the institutions have just passed or failed the students, or they have taken their previous marks. Most of the institutions have probably completed their mid-sem assessments, or the continuous assessment was in process. So they have just extrapolated those marks to reach to some logical grades or logical conclusions. But I think whatever exams the institutions are conducting, even we have also conducted exams. To me, these are not true reflection or true sense of evaluating the student on his or her 4 months or 5 months worth learning. My sense is evaluation in online space can be more suitable for the formative stage and not at the summative stage. As of now, in the current preparedness of things, my sense is online evaluation as of now are more suitable for formative stage. When it comes to summative stage, I think, and I'm not advocating whether the entire education system has to be online or offline. My sense is in today's scenario, it has to be a blended version. And that's where evaluation also will have to go into a blended mode, wherein some part of evaluation would go on a online space, whereas when it comes to a summative kind of assessment, as of now with the given technology and tools, probably we'll have to rely more on face-to-face or an offline kind of mode. given this semester and maybe the next semester probably would be the exceptional semesters, and we should not surely treat these semesters as the benchmarks. These were the exceptional semester, and most of the institutions have reacted to this situation in the best possible manner they could. But going forward, when this online space gets reasonably settled down, whether the issues of internet, whether the issues of devices, ma'am mentioned about pen tabs. So those things when be easily available to one and all, I think that's where we gradually will start evolving as a community of academicians who would also then gradually evolve the evaluation process. And nowadays, keeping in mind how we, addressing various outcomes that we have defined, that all these outcome attainments have been satisfied as part of evaluation process or not. So to me, those kind of summative things, as of now in the current state of preparedness, barring these 2 semesters as exceptional semester, as of now should be on face-to-face mode. But yeah, for formative stage, I think online would provide more flexibility. And as Professor Ranjan also mentioned, bringing in AI, bringing in lots of data analytics will give you that kind of bandwidth, wherein pinpointedly you can identify that this student needs a little more focus on a particular topic, and a set of students need to work on some other topic. So I think for formative stage, online will give you a lot more flexibility. But my personal sense is for summative assessment as of now, we should rely on contemporary process. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Banshal, for your brilliant causal as well as remedial reflections on the modalities of exams. And definitely your points are worth contemplating, worth taking, that at this hour, we should not think of summative, rather we should concentrate on simply formative assessment. So with that, I shall get back to Professor Prabhat Ranjanji. Sir, in the online mode of teaching, by the way, before I put this question, I would like to request all our panelists this time, to be a little brief in their answers, because we have time constraints. Yes. So in the online mode of teaching,
Professor Devendra to first. You
no, I'll go to her a little later. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So in the online mode of teaching, we have realized that we are programming our students to think and act in a certain manner, which adversely limits students' potential of being creative and analytical, let alone having problem-solving abilities. Harshly speaking, more often than not, students today are being groomed more as a commodity in the name of producing a skilled human rather than a sensible human. So how this capsule knowledge or knowledge in the form of capsule given through online education will help us? What is your take on this? Over to you, sir.
Okay, so I'll respond in this way. Before COVID-19 also, what I had done was that to take the lab to home actually. So I developed a concept of what is called lab in the bag. That means the students, just like they can work on software and other things in home, they could actually have a whole lab with them in their bag. And we did this, same systems were used in our labs, and students could carry this. So the creativity part through projects and self-learning experiments could continue in the home itself. And that is coming very handy. So this is in fact one of the questions being asked was also this, that how do you do the practical? So in certain areas, we have tried to make sure the students can actually do that. And this is also we have done for many other areas. I'm not going to details of that. So the other part that I would like to mention is that, for example, I have worked in disability sector and I've developed a number of technology. And I have found that when you look at their problems, your empathy develops in some sense. So we are also making students actually to connect to such real problems in life. I had faced a situation where a student whose father had an accident, he knew that I was working there. He never came to me and said that my father has a problem. His father contacted separately because of a newspaper article. So that empathy among the students, that they don't even bother about our own family members, is very important. I found that disability old age sector is very, very important for this. And I personally work in this sector, so I'm trying to bring that in and giving a student that you find somebody you can help. Focus on solving one person's problems. That's the empathy that I want students to have. And very importantly, students should be able to observe problems around that. Most of the time, students are used to doing Google search and looking at problems, but I'm saying that no. You look around, find in your family members, in your neighborhood, among friends, what is the problem they have and how do you solve that? This problem could be solved through technology, it could be solved by many other means. So to make them a complete, better human being, not give them capsules of knowledge, we are trying to get them to link to real world so that their focus is not simply on examination and question answers, but also on real life around that. I think I'll stop at this point so that time is short.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So moving from the issue of curricula, I'll move on to the issues or challenges associated with the classroom also, or what you call virtual classroom. In our 4 months of online teaching in virtual classrooms, by the way, this question is going to be posed for Professor Srihari Honward. Yeah. So what we have experienced in virtual classroom is it gives a sense of isolation and less opportunities of collaborative learning. As a result, students develop negative thoughts and psychological issues. Virtual classroom not only makes peer interaction, minimal, but also, it makes students less disciplined, less committed, and less responsible when it comes to attending classes, completing assignments, then participating in group discussion, taking notes, or doing research. So in physical classroom, a teacher can gauge mind, language, body language, and behavioral activities of the student to know her receptivity. But that is not possible. That is not happening in online mode of teaching. So given this, how do you think the environment of virtual classroom can be made more conducive for ideal teaching and learning, in which students may gel with each other and use their creativity and problem solving abilities? Over to Professor Honward, please.
Thank you. I think this webinar is a great example of what could happen, what could go wrong in a virtual classroom. And if you look at the bottom of our screens, in question and answer side, there are only 3 comments, whereas there are some 44-45 chats happening. And out of 127 participants, even if we say each participant one chat, which means about 80 of them are passive, and I'm sure a few of them are in here only for the certificate. I think this is bound to happen, and your diagnosis is I mean, there is a clear indicator of this diagnosis. Few things will have to be done, especially for concurrent online classes. That will have to then something and say everybody must answer this question or same thing which we do in a face-to-face classroom, and that teacher will have to find ways and means of keeping students engaged. The second thing is when it is live online, I think will help us build this, and technology should help us indicate how much each student is contributing. There is one still bigger problem, that is what we want in terms of teams, in a group of in a team with people whom they have never seen face to face in their lives. I think that's a skill which we'll have to build in online also. We will have to create those structures, create those teams, and everything that a student does has to get recorded, and that record will tell us how it's happening, and the record will have to be automatically translated into either a formative evaluation or otherwise, and that would be the driving force for the students. If we continue to translate the same this thing of passive learning of a sage on stage model, which is happening today because we have jumped into that is especially where there are multiple sections. Only one teacher is giving a lecture to multiple sections, and the other teachers are not even contributing to either monitoring or this thing. In the case where Dr. Ranjan was referring 1,000 students were there, I'm sure there must have been at least 20 teaching assistants spread throughout the classroom of 1,000 students, monitoring and helping students to cooperate with. I think that will have to be created. Maybe a professor will need a 1,000 students online, wherein student queries and what each student is doing,
Right.
which means we'll have to keep the active learning principles in mind and make sure that students are continuously doing something while online, whether it is concurrent or you know, otherwise process is being offered. I think we will have to get students engaged. I think we'll have to innovate for making sure that the students are engaged. I think that's where the
Thank you, Professor Hanward, for your thought-provoking deliberations. And that will take me to Dr. Bansal for a quick question and quick answer. Sir, COVID-19 crisis has made us think what our students should be prepared for in the future. Based on a recent report by Dell Technologies, 85% of the jobs in 2030 that current generation will enter into have not been identified yet. According to another report of the World Economic Forum, 65% of primary school children today will be working in job types that do not exist yet. So my question here is, what is the relevance or utility of current curricula in relation to the future jobs? And given that, how will you better prepare our students for what the future might hold? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Professor Jha, I think I'll not say that present curricula is absolutely will be redundant or will have no relevance to what future may look like. And this has been true for last 20, 25 years that, I mean, we used to sometimes call that the date of your degree would be actually the date of expiry of your knowledge. That means you need to get into a sense of lifelong learning, in a philosophy of being a lifelong learner, be a critical thinker, be a problem solver. So all these things can't be taught actually. These have to be amalgamated along with your day-to-day course delivery, day-to-day pedagogical innovations. These have to be amalgamated along with that. I mean, if we give students the problem that are already mentioned in a textbook, then obviously student would not get into any critical thinking mode or any problem solving mode. But as Professor Ranjan was also saying, if we take them close to the nature, if we take them closer to the society and ask them to discover the problem of society and nature and come up with the solution of which are more pertinent to the society or nature using their own domain, that's where probably they'll get into the mind frame of being a critical thinker or being a critical problem solver. And eventually being a lifelong learner. I mean, you can't stop learning any point of time in today's scenario. The knowledge which our father and maybe the grandfather used to carry, they continued their job, I mean, surviving on that knowledge alone. But even in our generation, I mean, it becomes very difficult to be able to sail through with the knowledge probably that we acquired in late 80s, in my case, in late 80s or early 90s. The things have changed so drastically. I mean, just to give you a quick reference before I close my remark, one of my friends is still working in a power industry. He is a head technical there. I was earlier working for a power company for about 13, 14 years. So I was just a couple of weeks before chatting with him that, hey, how's the thing? I mean, in the maintenance front, are we still spending 2 days, 3 days sitting or standing in front of a turbine and looking, dismantling of turbine, the whole of the turbine and taking care of the maintenance aspects? So he said, Kamal, everything has changed. I mean, you don't have to spend a minute on the turbine. Everything is getting monitored in the control room, and the same data can be available on your mobile also. And you can pinpointedly go to the point where you want to open up the part and repair or replace the part. So the things have entirely changed. A lot of digitization has happened, and that has actually made our lives little easier and complex in some sense also. But yes, it has entirely changed the whole spectrum. And that's where we need to train our students. My sense is they need to be digitally savvy, number one. They need to be contemporary with whatever softwares are available. When we talk about AI or data analytics, they are not the terms to be used in reference to the computer science alone. Whether it is health science to social science to any stream you talk about, everywhere these technologies are being used. So my sense is, I think we need to focus more on our pedagogy, how these technologies are day in, day out used in our pedagogy, in our assignments, in our question answers. And similarly, see to it that whatever problems we give to students are not from any textbook, but we encourage them to go to the society, go to the industry, go to the nature, and discover the problems also themselves, and see that, figure out how to solve them. And the lifelong learning. I think I'll pick these 3 points to sum up my.
Very well said, sir. Very well said. And in the meantime, we have been joined by an eminent guest, who has been the head of elementary education in NCERT, New Delhi. Yes, I'm talking of Professor Kiran Devendra. Ma'am, pleasure is solely mine to welcome you in this highly thought-provoking panel discussion on coping with challenges of online education. Although time is running short, however, we would like to hear a few words from you about challenges of online education. As you know, most of our teachers do not feel comfortable in using online platforms of imparting education. As a result, a divide between online friendly teachers and online unfriendly teachers has surfaced in recent past. What I have observed is in online education, the role of a teacher is very minimal. So how do you look at this scenario, ma'am? Don't you think a teacher's role is not just to instruct, but also to construct young minds? Don't you think in virtual classrooms of online teaching, we often fail to make online classes as participatory, collaborative, and interactive as in offline or physical classroom? Over to you, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Professor Jha. It was a pleasure to listen to this webinar, especially when you started with the quotation of Aristotle. It is the mind and the heart which need to play a bigger role. And as the first panelist, Dr. Ranjan, said, I would very much like to agree with him that the role of hands is very important. Mother Teresa had always been saying that the hands that pray, the hands that heal are more important than hands that pray. And this is often used by a very famous and upright cardiologist, Dr. Devi Shetty, as well. What I feel is that as far as COVID and the learning processes are concerned, listening to a large number of educationists, psychologists on the debates on the TV, large number of highly accomplished doctors, the scientists like Dr. Fauci of US, Dr. Jerome King of Korea, and many other Indian scientists, one feels that COVID needs much more attention than only getting into a panic or thinking about one thing. There are several challenges, and I would like to share with you as a student of social sciences that it is not merely the people who are getting affected by COVID or the places which are the red zones which need to be contained, but there is a island which is Hawaii in USA. It has given its recent experiences of having gone not through COVID, but the fear that entails it. Most of the teachers are sitting at home. The doctors are sitting at home. The scientists are, of course, working from home and going to the labs with a lot of protective gear. The doctors are doing the same. But what one needs to understand is, as one of our very learned panelists had said, that we also need to share with students many other things, many other developments which are taking place, and also motivate each one of them. Looking at the eyes of our students in the classrooms, we can make out that the student is inattentive. And that is not only the fault of the student, but also the unpreparedness of the teacher, the failure of the teacher to engage the student in a meaningful manner. Now, talking about the online education, I was the one, you are very much aware, who had always felt challenged. I never thought that I would be able to use technology, but when I was to superannuate from NCERT, I learned it within 3 days because I gave a positive message to myself that I needed to do it because I wouldn't have the PAs and the secretary. I learned it in 3 days, but when I came in contact with the MIT, and especially the long discussions with you and many of my colleagues like Chandani, Dr. Chandani Sengupta, Dr. Pallavi, Dr. Ali, Dr. Hemant Jha, and I have had discussions with you for hours and hours. And I have always believed that there is everything positive about the online learning, except that most of us, we go unprepared to the classes. The main reason why I feel that there needs to be a combination of there needs to be a blending is that the teacher needs to remain a student throughout his or her life. And I can never start my day without reading 2 or 3 books in a day, which means a page from each book. It doesn't give me a feeling of being a teacher. And I love to listen to the debates because I use all those things for my students in classes. Because in COVID, most of us have seen that the human in us is not alive. Most of us have allowed it to die a natural death. Why? Because while protecting ourselves from COVID, we have tried to become nervous. We are in panic. And another most important thing is that we never try to leave our comfort zone to help others. There are so many examples, like if I can't go out, I try to talk to my seniors, send medicines across. If somebody needs something, talk on the phone, talk to another person on the phone and send the things across. It is very, very important that we try to keep the human in us alive. The teacher needs to do it more. You know it very well that we have a lot of students who have some kind of positivity in them. Every student has a potential. It is the challenge of the teacher through the preparedness and continue to being a student and be a friend of the student, whether it is online or in classrooms. Even in, while we are talking about the disadvantages of online education, one often finds that teachers just go relaxed to the classes. They open their laptops to write their research articles and they tell students to open a chapter and then the classes are going on. What I would feel that the commitment of the teacher is very, very important, whether it is online or offline, but the teacher must remain a student first and keep observing what a student needs. What is the point of life that is bothering a student? We need to be careful now. We've seen so many cases of suicides. And whenever a teacher insults a student is, ready to take life. There are so many examples, especially during the time of COVID. I wish that each one of us is gentle, is a friend of the student.
Absolutely.
And also, before I close, I wish that everyone who is a part of this webinar stays safe with the family and we can meet again. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. It was your insistence and also a message from PVC that made it possible for me to give up an important work and be a part of this seminar. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your words. And it's always a delight to hear you, but unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we could not, give you much time. So definitely next time we'll hear more from you. Well, finally, I would like to have the views of Professor Banerjee, since we are left with only 5 minutes. So before we close, I would like to have the views of Professor Banerjee, whose relentless efforts have taken Amity's curricula to a greater height of academic excellence. Ma'am, we would like to hear from you how our students can be groomed in the direction of societal well-being. Right. Today's graduates are
Thank you, Dr. Jha. Yes, I'm cutting you short because I'll be left with then 2 minutes, and maybe I don't know whether you're going to have a question answer. So we should have, because I could see many questions also for the panelists. So what basically I was listening to each one of you, and frankly this hour, the hour and a half, nearly 1 hour and a half that we have spent, it was for me like mindful meditation, and lots of, collaborative thoughts and ideas have come through. But I was just remembering about a year back through a European Union project, and I prepared a model where I've talked about curriculum design model, and I call it a 6 C's model, where I've talked about choice, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and change. And I'm so excited that during this crisis, we could see that even any system, even an online education, if you look into these 6 C's, possibly you can use it in the different kinds of pedagogy. So one of the things that I'll really appreciate if a lot of faculty members who are from different institutions, you're most welcome to come and work on this model that has been already published. Possibly Professor Jha can, share it with each one of you. Beyond that, what I was really thinking about, like, if you look at our students, like from the age of 18 to the 24, this is approximately the time that they're spending in both undergraduate or a postgraduate program or early research programs. They are going through a crisis era. So they are learners in a crisis era. So they are definitely going to be more resilient. They're definitely going to be more flexible. And they're definitely going to be more adaptive to the situation. So keeping that in mind, my heart goes out to all faculty members, because we are expecting each one of them should become an encyclopedia of everything, right? From becoming a caregiver to becoming the most important knowledge resource, or they have to be most technically sound. But it is most important also to identify that if we collaborate, if we create a league of good institutions where there could be sharing of best practices. From today's discussion also, we can take away a few best practices where we are talking about teacher training, where we are talking about student and their psychology. Because let me tell you, I was very happy to hear the word attention deficit disorder. In fact, we are, as a team of psychologists from the university, we are working on the distraction that is setting in due to too much of technology time. Because whether we are waking up in the morning to pick up our mobile phones and then the whole day moves on, we are integrally involved in technology. So there are already a lot of studies which are published in the way that attention, how do you still keep your attention and attentiveness and be alert. So that is one area I think that we will encounter. I could see one question which is talking about how do I think Professor Kishan Pandey is a director HR. He has been Admiral Kishan Pandey. He's saying, how will you bring back students into the campus after the lockdown? Will there be an inertia? My answer is no. Whenever I've spoken to my youth, they're all excited to socialize. They want to connect. So we cannot do away with the physical touch. So it is important to keep this this is a means to an end. Just like you had a printing press, or the first time you had emails, or then you had the internet, and now we talk about internet of everything. So these are all means to the end, because the knowledge is going to be always supreme. So what institutions should work on, they should be knowledge creators and definitely disseminators. But we will definitely... Kiran, I think you're on unmute. So what basically we need to do is, we'll have to create a situation where we have a lot of collaborative learning with practitioners. And we have not spoken of the industry, but let me tell you, in these 2 months, industry have come ahead. They have realized that they need the people going back to their factories. I was reading about an NRI who sent back on flight to all his people going back to Kerala with a 1 month salary. And then he's going to bring them back to Oman. So there are some initiatives that we need to understand that people from different industries are working. So industry integration, internationalization through good global, because I believe there's going to be global interdependence now. Never more than now. This is the time we are doing it on real time. So there has to be global independence. There has to be an industry integrated approach, and we cannot do it alone. An institution, a teacher has to walk with their pupils and make it happen. And definitely at the end, I must say that this is very different times, but there have been a lot of learnings, and I appreciate all the work and the patience of all the people who are involved in this whole journey of creating an excellence, having the innovative approach towards curriculum design, development, pedagogy, as well as classroom engagement. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we close, we will take just one question, because already I am getting reminder from the host that we should close it now. This question is for Professor Ranjan. Sir, the question is, sir, you are a nuclear scientist. The question says like this: we know that science has given us so many good things, but at the same time, science and technology have caused enormous destruction and made this planet unlivable. So is it possible that our scientists could do some research on human cell by which every human could become peace-loving by nature? Please, sir.
When we had the climate change convention in Paris in 2015, COP21, I had made a statement that while technology has spoiled us, the solution also lies in technology. So I'm not talking about the cells part, how we modify that, and part of your voice was lost. I couldn't hear the last part of that. But playing with nature is dangerous, and we have to be very, very careful about what you do with the nature. I've been a person who is actually, I'm a nuclear fusion scientist, not to mix with nuclear fission scientists. I'm a nuclear fusion scientist, probably the first PhD from India in nuclear fusion. But I worked in actually many, many areas, and one of them is brain-computer interface. And today we are coming to a situation where we are actually able to modify brains. So I'm not talking about cell level. It may be possible, but I think there are better ways to deal with this. We should not play with the nature as much as possible. So I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but that's what I would think.
Dr. Jha, I think we should take some questions from the chat box, the question and answer.
Right.
If we have time.
Yes, the problem is we are not having time, ma'am. We have plenty of questions. So I think we'll have to close here, ma'am, because I'm getting reminder from the host. So I'll just briefly conclude the session. First of all, online education is not going to be an absolute alternative to offline.
Dr. Jha, 1 second. Can you please request our team to take these questions now with them, and we should send
they are noting
back to them.
Yes, they are noting down.
That have come through. So if you can announce that we'll be responding to their questions on the email.
Absolutely, ma'am. We are going to do that now. So, because both online and offline modes have their pros and cons, but they can create wonders if they reinforce and intertwine with each other. But even if we adopt hybrid form, the integrity and fairness will remain a concern in the online conduct of exams. Hence, the institutional administration needs to think out of the box and explore a credible solution to the conduct of online examinations. Since it takes time in getting familiarized with the new online platforms of online teaching, another caution that we need to take is we should not allow this great paradigm shift to take place at a faster pace, as it mounts up, undue pressure and anxiety on teachers as well as students. And learning can never happen under anxiety. As the great psycholinguist Stephen Krashen says, higher the anxiety, lower the learning, and lower the anxiety, higher the learning. In addition, to see any paradigm shift or changes in the modes of imparting education, we need to form learning consortiums by involving all the stakeholders, especially teachers, learners, technologists, curriculum designers, parents, policymakers, publishers, and telecom operators on one platform, and keep one another informed in terms of planning, executing, and monitoring all educational approaches and innovations. Another thing that we all need to bear in mind is online education requires a greater commitment and discipline from learners as well as teachers. If we have that, only then our learning outcome will be at par with that of on-campus education. So with these words, we conclude this session here by thanking all our esteemed panelists, including Professor Kiran Devendra, for gracing this occasion with their scholarly presence. And I also thank the co-conveners of this event, Dr. Sunil Mishra, Dr. Supriya Sanju, and Dr. Shraddhanvita, Mr. Rakesh Chaudhary, and my entire ASLA team for extending their support in organizing this panel discussion. Thank you all. Stay safe. See you again with a new burning issue. Till then, namaskar, Jai Hind.
Thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.